How are you doing today? You ready for this? I'm ready for this. I'm actually low-key quite nervous. Actually, very nervous. Um, the whole idea of so we were talking about this morning about whether I should use a good version or a bad version, and we decided that I should just use the bad version, like I shouldn't fix it. And that kind of freaks me out. um, okay, I just have to fix my settings quickly. Okay, there we go. I am back. So we are working on our paper one. We're looking at question 1B, and I'm going to put myself out there and share my terrible writing from yesterday. Um, what made it terrible really was just I was distracted because my son came into the room and he kept asking me things, and my door wasn't locked, and it was just like usually I lock my door while I teach. It's just like a lot. And the reality is that when we are in our exams, that is not outside of the outside of the realm of possibilities. I mean, you might have had a bad night's sleep the night before, and your writing might suck, and that's okay. Okay. So I'm going to take what we've got from yesterday and we're going to explore it a little bit. Okay. Let's transition. Okay, so our goal for today, those who want to join on Discord, I have pasted the link on Discord. So our goal for today is really to just work through question one. Let me just see what's happening here. Seems weird. No, that's fine. We just want to work through question 1B and maybe do some, maybe if we've got some time, then some of you can share some of your question 1A answers and some of your 1B answers. I want to get as much feedback in here as possible today. Now, what are we wanting here? So our question says, uh, our question says, compare your advertisement with the article analyzing form, structure, and language. So our goal here is not so much for me to teach you everything from scratch, but I feel like there are some basic things that I need to cover here. Okay. And you'll hear me use some terminology that I think you should know, which doesn't actually have anything to do with English in particular. It has things to do with the way I approach learning. Um, but I mean, since we are learning together today, I do believe it's relevant. Okay, so I'm going to just let's create a section over here. Um, it's kind of irritating when it does that. There we go. If I just click on it, then it takes it back to 100. Okay, so let's choose a color. Um, Can everyone on YouTube hear me? Are you able to hear me clearly? Just comment with a loud no if you can't. Um, okay, so there are some foundational concepts that I'd like to explore. Okay, so the first one is the trivium. Okay, now this is how I do all learning for myself and how I teach. This is how my kids have always done their learning. Um, my kids are also homeschooled and they are chaotically homeschooled at that. And you might have heard of classical education. I take it a step further. I do like proper Plato style classical education. Um, and so we've got our trivium, which is our grammar, our logic, and our rhetoric. And then we've got our quadrivium, which we're not actually going to explore today. But basically, from here, you'll notice that the way I'm approaching these things is I approach it from the base building blocks. Like, this is Lego. Open your box of Lego. Okay. Now, taking the building blocks is basically the logic section is basically being able to use the Lego blocks and follow the booklet. Okay. And then the rhetoric level is where we take the building blocks we've got and we create our own. Okay, so we create our own design from the little Lego blocks we've got. Okay, now in terms of analysis, you will see that you are wanting to explore all three of these. Okay, and not like showing someone that you've got the grammar, but what is our grammar here? Using the correct terminology. Okay, being able to recognize the devices. Okay, our logic is being able to take the devices and understand what the devices do. So what the language does. Okay, then our rhetoric is being able to see very, very clearly and articulate, not just see, but also articulate. Okay, so see and articulate. So it's about being able to see and articulate the connections between the language that's used and how it's used, and the relevance to the audience and the context, and being able to say, okay, so this punctuation does, yes, I'm bringing algebra into this. Punctuation does X, and so we're looking at punctuation does X, and in this case, it is used like this. Okay, so in this case, it is used like this, and therefore, our therefore is our top level. So therefore, if I take the punctuation plus the context plus the audience plus the purpose, it equals the effect. Okay? Now, this effect is going to connect multiple multiple different ideas. Okay, it's not just going to be, I'm not going to write half my essay on a punctuation mark. Okay. Does everyone understand? Are we all following? Fabulous. Okay. Oh, so now let's jump into what we're actually supposed to do. Okay. So if we take our question, our question says, let's copy it here. And I think today, instead of typing my answers, I'm going to write it. Because, I mean, you guys have to do that, so why should I not have to? Click there. Yes, that worked. Okay. I'm going to take that and we'll paste that. So, let's choose a pen color. Let's do pink. I dig some good old pink. Okay, so compare your advertisement with the article analyzing form, structure, and language. So let's first discuss, what are we actually supposed to do? Who can help me with this one? What are we trying to do? I don't know if you guys know this reference, but I'm going to say, what the hell is a Hufflepuff? Because that's fun. Do you guys know the reference? Not to Hufflepuff, but like generally, what the hell is a Hufflepuff? It's a Harry Potter musical reference, which is a parody. But compare your advertisement with the article analyzing form, structure, and language. So what are we actually trying to do? Pardon? Um, compare to analyze. Like, I'm just struggling to hear you. Oh, you use comparison to analyze. Yes, so we're going to use comparison to analyze. Let me just transition here. I should really just create a shortcut. Okay, let's see what this other one was here. We compare the two texts to see how their different forms and language help to appeal to their audience and fulfill the purpose. Okay, let's break that down. So we compare the two texts, compare texts, and we're looking at how the different forms, language, appeal to audience, and fulfill the purpose. Okay, let's see. Only thing there is structure. But I mean, structure and language kind of go hand in hand. Well, structure kind of goes hand in hand with form and language, depending on the piece, right? So I'm just going to add here form, structure, and form, language, and structure. Appeal to audience and fulfill the purpose. And I want to just specify here, it is a specific audience. Okay. You must always make sure that when you talk about your audience, you are always super, super specific. Okay, that cool? I did like that comment. Okay. So, now let's break this down. Compare text. Now, what's the difference between just writing an analysis essay and a comparative analysis essay? Pardon? When you're comparing them? Okay, so when we're comparing them, we're finding two things, similarities and differences. Now, a big thing here is we need to account for why. Okay, so we want to account for why those differences are there. And where do you think we're going to find that reason? Let's just see what Shadow Studio says. In a comparative, you have to contrast a different text and actually show how these differences and similarities help to something what the author has intended. Sorry, I've got something covering my screen there. Yes, absolutely. So in a comparative, we want to look at the different texts and we want to show how the differences help to get what the author has intended. But also that's the same as an analytical essay, because in an analysis essay, we're also trying to look at how the specific feature, the language or structural feature, is intended to, or how it's being used to get across what the author has intended. Okay, so that is a thing. Now, so that's for a normal analysis essay. So what makes comparative analysis different is that we're contrasting them and we're looking at, okay, these differences and similarities, let's account for them. Why? What is the reason for them? And they're usually to do with context, audience, and purpose. Okay, so what the center of a comparative analysis is, as you may not be aware, but the center is not language, form, and structure. Okay, yes, language, form, and structure are super important and you have to use them. But what we're trying to get to, like pretend we're on a little journey, okay? What we're trying to get to is context, audience, and purpose. Okay? We want to get to those three things. And the route we are going to use to get to those three things is going to be our language, form, and structure. Okay? And let's turn it into a nice little equation here. So we're going to take language, form, and structure, and we're going to combine the language, form, and structure with a method of comparing and contrasting. Okay? And I don't know who takes chemistry, but like, let's say this is a chemical equation. Our thing that's going to make it kind of ignite, going to make it work well, is going to be great language, clear communication, so clear structure, sorry, clear structure, and I want to say a clear thesis. Thesis is like your main point. You're building it around something. So a clear thesis. And there was something else I was thinking about a moment ago. Oh, there we go. And confidence. Okay. Now, I just want to note here, this confidence doesn't have to be real. Just make it up. Okay. It is totally okay to pretend to be more confident than you are. You can pull off a lot in life with a bit of confidence. I realize that I've got my Joburg accent on today, so we're just going to live with that. At least I can read today, so that's great. Okay. So we've got our confidence. And when you are speaking confidently, when you're writing confidently, your message comes across a lot more clearly and a lot more. It's really easier to follow what someone is saying. So if you look at my piece that I wrote yesterday, I got distracted. I lost confidence, and everything kind of went downhill from there. So we're going to take that piece that I wrote yesterday and we're going to analyze it. Okay, we're going to analyze the form, structure, and language. And I'm going to make some notes on it. And then you're going to make notes on yours. And then from there, we're going to build on from there. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my piece that I wrote yesterday. Does everyone understand here this whole thing here? I know this is like a wild concept and it's possibly a little bit mathematical. But the reason maths is so cool is because it makes sense. The thing is, we need to understand what we're going for. And if you're just going to tell me about the language, form, and structure, it's fine. You might pass. You might get like, yeah, you might pass. But if you want to do well, if you want to really feel like you get it, and that's what I'm going for. I'm going for the feeling of I get this, I've got this, I understand this. So if you want to go for that feeling, then you really do need to lean into this context, audience, and purpose. Okay. Okay. So let's quickly go to my text here. And now I'm going to use green because I'm in the mood for green. Green is kind of vibing at me right now. It's quite a nice green. It's very blue. It's quite a vibe. Okay. It's a little bit, it's not going to work well there. Let's try that one. It's got a bit more white in it. Okay. So I'm going to take my piece. Yesterday we read the other piece together. I'm going to just take my piece quickly and work through it. So you can work on yours. I'm just going to take 5 minutes to work through, to make some notes on this so that I can talk about it. Okay. Now, remember, I just want to make you aware, I don't look at the exam outside of our class time, this specific exam, because I want you to see what it's like in your exam, and how I would deal with it, and the panic that I go through. And you're not unique in like feeling freaked out by your exam. It's normal. And it's okay. I feel like there's a child that just happened in my room. Just made a sound. No, my door was locked. Everything's locked. Okay. So I'm just busy annotating my thing here. Ah, do you know what I just remembered? I can't actually annotate this because in my exam I'm not going to be able to annotate it. Okay, so I'm rather just going to number it, and I'm just going to say title. I'm going to have a little section here. Let's just move that down there. Would an example of using form to talk about context be the same as mentioning how the title can provide a certain amount of context as to what the text is about? Let me just process what that's saying. Would an example of using form to talk about context? Okay, so let's take that. The title provides some contextualization. So if we look at my example here, smell the art, an olfactory experience of the art of the past of the Prado. So I wanted to give some kind of context. It's actually what I set out to do here, okay? So I wanted to provide my audience with some kind of context, okay? Because honestly, when I first read this piece, I was like, the original piece, I was like, okay, what is going on? So I've got Smell That Art, which is kind of like a hook, you know, like we would on TikTok or wherever. But Smell That Art, an olfactory experience of the art of the past at Prado. Now Prado, I'm expecting my audience to already have some kind of understanding that Prado is a gallery, considering they've got a pamphlet, a brochure in their hand. Okay. So I'm giving some limited information here. Okay. But I am telling them that it is an olfactory experience which creates intrigue. Okay. And it's the art of the past at Prado. I didn't actually talk about the artist because I could have mentioned the artist, I just chose not to. Okay. So an olfactory experience tells us that it is visual and nose vibe experience. And this does provide them with some context. We've got the art of the past. So we're taking an old thing, we're making it new. Okay. So I do think that it does provide context, but let's take it a step further. Why is it providing that context? Is it providing the context because this catches the audience's attention? I'm sorry, you can probably hear how much I hate that statement. So it's not just providing context because that captures the audience's attention. It's not just providing context because it's providing context because it gives them a frame of reference within which to put the next bit of information. Okay, providing a frame of reference makes your writing, it makes someone able to follow your writing, so it lets them follow it. It also self-selects your audience. let's put it this way. I would love for millions of people to watch my stream today. Okay, probably not. I don't know. I would get very nervous. But let's say I'd love 1,000 people to watch it. Okay. Would I like 7 billion people to like it? What do you guys think? Pardon? I don't think I would. I don't think I would like, well, I definitely wouldn't like billions of people to watch because it's not relevant to billions of people. We are looking specifically today at the AS English language exam. How relevant is that to everyone? Not really. It is relevant to you guys. Okay? It is relevant to those that kind of need to know. Okay? Those who are working through it. Make sense? Okay. So if we look at it like that, we need to understand that if I say this text is for anyone who is interested in art, is that true? It is too broad because let's create a character profile. I like to create a character profile for my audience. Okay, so sure, they must like art or be interested in art. Okay, they may also be interested in science. They may also be interested in history. Okay, but now really it's limited to a specific region. It's limited really to people who can get to Madrid. Okay, so firstly, that is outside of my tax bracket. Going to Madrid for a weekend. It's not my tax bracket. So while this is great, it's not necessarily for me because I cannot go experience this. If there was an online exhibition, which would be weird because it's a smell thing, like I don't know how you're going to smell it online, but if it was like an online exhibition, then it would be accessible to me. So already by being located in a certain place, it is only accessible to people who are in Madrid or people who are able to afford to go to Madrid. It is also aimed at people who are available between the 20th of September and the 5th of October. Who could those people be? They could be people who are going on holiday in that specific time, or it could be people who are in that area at the time. Now, another element, a brochure is a print item. So it is directed specifically at the people who will have access to the print item. So where are we going to distribute this print item? And so all of this is narrowing down my audience. Do you see that? And so how does it help me to narrow down my audience? Yes. And remember, as I said earlier, if we take our audience and we understand our audience, we can, because our context, audience, and purpose go together. Because I speak My purpose is what here? My purpose is to get people to the event. I don't need them to know every fact about the art before the event. I just wanted them to get to the event. I can teach them about the fact when they are there. So I need to create enough intrigue to get them to the event. And so that is my context. My form, being a brochure, being an advert, has determined my context. Do you see that? And my context, my form, they work hand in hand. Okay? My structure, let's see, I looked at the end, I added, if I can just find this. At the end, I added a link. Now, what this does is it creates some kind of call to action. Okay? It says, okay, now you've got this information. My piece didn't actually say what times we're open. It didn't give information about, like, maybe you want to know more. Maybe you want to take your friends, but you kind of need to sell your friends on the idea because your friends aren't super into art, but they are pharmacists. And so you want to like make that a thing, and you know they'll be into the chemistry of it. So maybe you want to sell it to them from that perspective. And so I've given you visit this website for more information because that gives a call to action. So this is how I connect my my language, my form to my structure. Do you see that? And so I'm creating some kind of call to action to achieve what? My purpose. And my purpose is what? Yeah. Now let's look at it this way. The people, my audience, do they need a lot of convincing? I don't think so either. The people, my audience would be people who are specifically looking for something to do. I don't want them to cancel their family plans so that they can come. I want them to bring their whole family. I am offering this as an opportunity, not as a sales pitch. It's free. I'm offering it as an opportunity. This whole piece, an olfactory experience of the art of the past at Prado, absorb the world of John Brueghel, the elders, the sense of smell as it was meant to be experienced in 1617. I am selling an experience. Do you see that? From 20 September to 5 October, join us for free. I could have actually put free in all caps, which would have been, no, cat. Why are you trying to steal my rusks? That's rude. My gosh. Okay, so I could have written that in all caps, and what would that be called if I wrote it in all caps? How would I talk about that? What would the term be? No, it wouldn't be an interjection, no, but I'm looking for the word graphology. Okay, my graphology is how I've used typeface and things like that to do the writing. So for instance, here, the sense of smell, if you look at my original text, this was in italics. This was bolded. And I would have made this free all caps, and I might have made room 83 Prado Museum Madrid. I might have underlined that. And if I'd underlined that, what it would have done is it would have kind of emphasized it and made it easy to find, which lines up with my context. People are just looking for a place to go. Okay. Also, it would have lined up with my text type, which is my form. Your form and text type are kind of the same thing. So it would have lined up with my form. My form is uh, a brochure. Now, I need to inform you guys of something very, very sad, a very sad reality, and that is that most of the world has no reading comprehension whatsoever. So, we're not going for, we want them to be able to look at the page, find the information easily, and come. Okay? Even people who do have reading comprehension, like me, I sometimes just miss it. And like you guys saw yesterday, I have no reading days where I just can't read. It's a paragraph. And so what might have made it better even is if I had taken the information and put it in point form. I could have listed the details in point form. That would be a structural decision. Does that make sense? Okay. So if I look at this, Shadow Studios, I really, really love that question. Just the connection that you made there. So I'm just going to keep annotating my piece here. You guys are welcome to chime in as you feel the need to. Mm. Mm. Okay, so I've made a couple of notes on my piece here. Okay. Now what I'm gonna do, because this is where I might lose track of things completely. Because I'm excited now. So I'm excited. Okay. If you haven't noticed. So I'm excited because I always get excited when I find different components of language techniques that I didn't actually know were there when I wrote it. Okay. I made this up. Like I see connections there that weren't necessarily there when I wrote them. I didn't mean for them to be there, but we do a lot of what we do subconsciously. A lot of writing happens subconsciously. So what I've done here is I've just taken this and I've just made notes all over it. I've underlined some key words. I've got recreated, immerse yourself, groundbreaking, come alive, mind bending, experience, absorb. Now, I want to basically, the thesis of my thesis, my big point is that I have used accessible language and few details, okay, to invite people to an experience. I want to offer them an experience. My main thing that I'm trying to do is offer them an experience. This is my purpose, is to get them to buy into my experience. Okay. And now I also want to mention the fact that this is part of a brochure. Let me just check that I am correct here, because that is something that could lose me quite a bit of marks. In a brochure publicizing the exhibition. So actually, I can't go for that. I can't say it's part of a brochure, but what I was going to say is that this is part of a brochure, and being that it is part of a brochure, we are competing for people's attention. Okay, and so that is why I have my title, a catchy title, and I've got almost my title is quite intentionally catchy. Okay. Now, what I do here, I don't know what my computer's time says 7:55. I know that's definitely not the time. Now, what I'm trying to do here is not write, I don't want to write an analysis article, an analysis essay on my piece that I wrote. I want to, now that I've had, so I always give myself some time to deep dive into what I've said. Otherwise, my brain goes away. I have ADHD, as many of you do. And so I have so many thoughts, and so capturing them is kind of difficult. I don't struggle to think. I just like, I don't know, catching my thoughts is like catching butterflies and SpongeBob sometimes. So now what I'm going to do is, now that I'm fully acquainted with my piece, I'm going to go through the original piece and I'm going to annotate in the same way, specifically focusing on the similarities and differences. Okay. So I don't want to, I always start with my piece, because otherwise there's a lot more that I can analyze in a longer piece, and so that I actually have that connection between the two. Does that make sense? Okay. So, do you see how even though my piece kind of sucked, I still had a lot that I could say about it? Okay. And the fact that it sucked can kind of become irrelevant, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show that I see, this is what I'm trying to show my examiners. I want to show them that I can see the connections between the different concepts. I need to prove to them that I see the connection between the language, the form, the structure, the context, the audience, the purpose. I need to prove to them that I see it, and I need to prove to them that I can communicate my thoughts about it. That's all I'm doing. That's what an exam is about. The exam is not about testing. Okay, some people think it is, but I don't think it's about testing. I think it is about proving. Okay? And I suppose testing is proving, but they're seeing, can you do this? You're like, yeah, I can. If someone says to me, can you cook an egg? I'll be like, yes, I can. And they're like, can you just show me that the egg that you cook so that I can see that it's egg the way I like it? It's a weird idea, but I live with 7 autistic people, so it's just a part of my life. So that's what we're doing here. Okay, so I'm going to go through, and just like I did the other one, I'm going to annotate through this. And yeah, I suggest you do the same on your side. Recommend. Oh, sorry, I realized that I wasn't sharing my screen. Mm. I just want to say that a lot of this will happen in my head. Um, I am showing you guys how I would annotate this because I think it's helpful for you to know, but a lot of this happens in my head. In your exam, you don't have this much time. I mean, you've got an hour. Yeah, let's make it an hour to do question 1A and 1B. And then you've got an hour to do question 2. You really don't have that much time. And that's why they're not expecting absolute perfection from you. They are expecting to see that you know what you're talking about. Okay. I'm getting there. Are you guys kind of seeing the vibe and how I'm doing this, how I'm going about this? What are your thoughts on what the original piece, what do you think the purpose is? Am I just not able to hear you guys? To inform? Yes. Yeah, who's someone else said something? Okay, so I agree that it is to inform, but there's a specific way that it's trying to inform. And that's what I'm finding really interesting. It is trying to inform us, but to what end? Is it trying to inform us so that we can go bomb a building? It wants to inform us because. I want the because. I kind of currently feel like it's trying to sell a curiosity. It's trying to make us excited about this thing. It's wanting people to read it. Okay, great. Um, but it's trying to, it thinks, the person obviously thinks this is very interesting. Okay. And if it was merely to inform, if it was purely informative, then it would have just had it in point form. But here, yes, we want to inform, we want to describe. We want to do that because we find it interesting. The writer finds it interesting. The writer is using flowery language to, yeah, engage the reader, but also because the writer wants the audience to care about this thing. What do you guys think of that idea? It's almost like selling a curiosity, selling an interest. It could be the writer's personal writing style. In which case, I don't think that the writer is writing the type of stuff that's just existing to inform. Hmm. I like that idea. The teaching about using perfumes and things. Mm-hmm. I do think that there is an element of wanting people to go, but the thing is, it's like advertising the event. But it's kind of, I feel like it advertises the event in the same way that I advertise Sci which is like a science exploratorium that I take my kids to. I'm advertising not because I get anything out of it, but literally just because I think you'll think it's cool. Um, yes. So there's this focus on the experience, which happens to be similar to my piece. Okay, now this just I keep getting stuck on this. Um, yeah, this is like almost geeking out. I feel like the writer is genuinely interested in themselves. Do you know what I mean? And the same way that I try to get you guys to like obsess over English the way I do, I feel like that's kind of what the writer's doing here. Trying to create some genuine interest in this concept. Yeah, civet is a pretty harsh, dirty smell. Yeah, I feel like they kind of got carried away, and I'm loving it. Um, but there I'm going to actually talk about like something I do want to mention is passion um in writing versus my piece. And it is actually more relevant, more important to be passionate in writing here than it is in an advert. An advert doesn't set out to be passionate. Does that make sense? And I think that the use of jargon might show that the writer themselves, like I'm kind of leaning very much towards who is the writer here. I'm interested in the writer. Do you know what I mean? The writer now only here starts using more um, jargon. And that might be because the writer was making it accessible, but now has provided the context required to keep the audience's attention despite using jargon. Does that make sense? So the thing is, I know it's a bit of a risky theory. And it's definitely a risky theory to talk about it in an exam. But I really enjoy exploring unintentional decisions that give us insight into the writer. And I do this like it explains them to me, which lets me write about them. I don't really mention it. But here I'm seeing that the artist, the writer is interested in art. Um, so would line 49 be considered an anticlimax because the author talks about this experience and then suddenly mentions that you only get to have 45 minutes? Um, I think it's really a nice visit to a museum. In 45 minutes, you look at beautiful paintings and connect with this idea that you're not expecting the smell of the past. Okay, I disagree with you there, Shadow Studios, because if that were the case, it would be painted as just 45 minutes, okay? Or you only get 45 minutes. But it's saying this is a nice visit to the museum. So we connect the nice visit to the museum and then in 45 minutes. So we've got a nice visit. And then we're elaborating on that nice visit by saying in 45 minutes. So it's a short visit. Okay. Something I hate personally as a parent going to museums is how long it takes. I love going to museums with my friends, with my kids. I am exhausted because I am constantly explaining things, constantly talking, and constantly having my children tell me that they're not interested in this specific fact, but they were interested in every other fact. So in 45 minutes, you look at five beautiful paintings. So nothing else there is pointing to it being a negative thing. Do you see what I mean? So here I would say 45 minutes is actually painted or portrayed as a positive thing. Yes. Okay. So Sydney was saying that it's memories are usually fleeting, and so the second last paragraph here, our olfactory memory is stronger than our visual or auditory memory. It's almost like memories are usually fleeting, but now we've got this 45-minute session. This is part of the positive vibe. The memory of our mother's perfume, our first car, these are all positive things. Um, the first day at school with the smell of new pencils and paint. And so this can possibly connect idea wise to the 45 minutes being it's just 45 minutes, but you get to have this experience, this great experience where we're looking at five paintings and we're looking at the paintings and their smells, which is a very unique experience. And so we're selling here, it is actually leaning more into selling the specific event. Um, but it does still feel a bit like a geek out. So the writer is positive about it. Solar hopes his scents will help fix Brueghel's picture in people's minds as keenly as civet musk fixes a fragrance. Okay, by the way, as this is a simile, just in case nobody noticed. When you talk about a figure of speech, you talk about what, why, it's supposed to be what, why, and to what end. Okay. Our olfactory memory is stronger. I already read that. We all have our own olfactory memory, and the idea of this exhibition is that Jan Brueghel's painting will leave its own memorable olfactory print in all of us. Now, we've got an olfactory print. We've again got this contrast, actually, between, or the juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is a good word for you guys to learn. Juxtaposition of the auditory, the olfactory and the visual. Olfactory, print. Okay, because we usually see print as something visual. Okay. Now, if we look at these, a couple of things came up. And like I had a lot of thoughts. And I want to just direct us to how we can talk about these things and how we can explore these things so that we have some kind of structure to what we're saying. So everything needs to line up with genre, audience, subject, and purpose. Everything lines up. This is the foundation. Okay? Now from there, so we can talk about, okay, now the genre of the newspaper is different from the genre of the advert. And while the newspaper has some features of advertising, there is not much to gain from advertising the event. And it is providing the information to us and not saying we will only get the information, the deeper information, if we go to the event. My little article, my little advert basically says, if you want to know more, you need to come. I'm only giving you the bare minimum information. I am not selling you on a curiosity. I am selling you on an experience. Okay? And so the brochure piece was actually less aimed at the technically minded, less aimed at the artists, and more aimed at a general population who is available. Okay? Now, let me just think quickly. So that is those are the differences between the genres, okay? And they impact the audience. They impact our purpose. They're impacting the subject and what is spoken about, okay? Now, in terms of how we're going to talk about the different linguistic features, okay? So I like to use ClickPo. So we look at the context and how it all works together. Okay, then we look at lexis and semantics. You don't have to look at it in this order. This is just to make sure that if you run out of things to say, there is always more to say. Okay. How long should your piece be? Aim for every hour you should write 800 words. Your exam should be at about 1,500 to 1,800 words in total. Okay. I know that's long. So here we've got interactional features. And these are some of my favorite features to look at because I look at some lexis and semantics and these will interconnect. Now, some of the lexis and semantics will also interact with the audience. How is the audience expected to know something specific? How am I specifically speaking to my audience? And not just how is one speaking, how is the other. I'm asking, how are they speaking to their audiences differently and why are they doing it? How are they interacting with their audience? What is the connection to the audience and how do they achieve it? And why are they different? Okay. Graphology. So graphology is like where I was using bold. Where I was using, like if I used a smiley. I actually did use an emoji. Okay. All of these fall into graphology and italics. Basically how it looks, how the text looks. And then something else that would be relevant here in graphology is the brochure has short sentences, short paragraphs. And that's specifically because of how it will come out when printed. Because nobody's going to read a brochure with text walls. Did you guys think of that? Don't worry, I was 2 years old when I thought of it. Okay. And then P would be phonological features. Phonology. So phonology is all your sound devices. You see how there's the flowery language, but the flowery language is achieved by using rhythmic words. So we use there's a lot of rhyme used in the first piece, but in my piece, there wasn't a lot of rhyme used. In the first piece, there is a lot of sibilance in the first part, and then there's like that shift. And so there I get to talk about my structure. And I'm not saying go through and chaotically talk about everything, but I'm saying do your best to connect as many different things to each other as possible, okay? And don't just say the phonology does this, this, and this. Why does it do that? What effect does it have? Why does this impact this audience, but it wouldn't impact another audience? Why is it specifically relevant and useful in this piece? Does that make sense? So we've got phonology. So that's all your sound devices. Let me just write that down. Sorry that my handwriting's so bad today. Okay, and then we're missing the last one, which is an overview. Now your overview is basically, I want to see that you can connect all of it. How does everything stand together and work? Does that make sense? And so this is kind of like you can use your overview to also build your introduction. You don't have to have a conclusion. Some people are like, you don't have time in your exam for a conclusion, and that's fine. I like conclusions. I dig conclusions. It makes me feel like I'm complete and I can move on to the next thing. Conclusion doesn't actually take more than a minute. So I always write a conclusion, but I want to see the connection between all these things. So like here, you're going to bring back this idea of genre, audience, subject, and purpose. You're going to kind of solidify it and say, okay, now this is how all these things are connected, based on how we've approached this. Does that make sense? Okay, so does anyone have any questions? I know I did a lot more teaching today than I was planning to. I just realized that a lot of you are not in my classes, and so you don't necessarily have the context with which I'm approaching this. And so if I'm just going to show you my use of a technique without actually explaining the technique, it's just going to come out weird. But Sydney, even for you who's always in my classes, has any of this been illuminating for you? Okay, fabulous. Now, what I'd like us to do, okay, we've got 23 minutes. Okay, what I'd like us to do is I'd like us tomorrow in our session, I'd like us to write for the first hour. I'd like us to write this piece and give feedback. Or I think it's Thursday. I can't remember whether it's tomorrow or Thursday. I want us for the first hour to write this and post it so that we can do feedback. Then the second hour, I'm going to introduce question 2 and read the stuff for question 2. And then I want you to write your question 2 thing for homework. And then we bring it to the next lesson so that we can, or alone time, your time. I'm always at home, you're always at home. But I want you to do it in your time, and bring it to class. I'm going to still do this thing where I break down how I would analyze it and whatever. But it is a very long piece to analyze, and it's going to be a 900-word essay. And it's better for you to sit down just in your own space and just focus on writing it. Yes, you should definitely should do question 1A and 1B for the next class. Okay. Are we all good? Yes? Okay, so earlier on when I spoke about the pacing, your question 1A and 1B should be done in the first hour, question 2 should be done in the second hour. You should not take more than an hour to do the first part. If you are not done, move on to question 2. Please do not skip out on question 2 because you didn't have time and you were spending all your time on question 1A or 1B. Okay, move on to question 2. Give each one the time it deserves. Okay. Yes, please do do it in time. So try to do it within, like, it should take you about 30 minutes to do. Try to write it in a 30-minute session. Let me just quickly check when our next session is. I did post the time. Where did I post the times? It would be in the email, but it's also on my calendar. It's Friday. Okay, so it's Friday at 11:30. So there's nothing tomorrow, nothing on Thursday. So the next session is on Friday. Okay. I will see you all on Friday then. That was lots of fun. Goodbye.